Welcome back. Now, as South Africa shifts from processing President Ramaphosa's proposed economic reforms from last week's State of the Nation address, the country looks ahead to next week's budget speech. This one that must contend with an unexpected withdrawal of foreign assistance from the U.S. government, with President Trump's executive order heightening anxieties about South Africa's relations with Washington. In the context of these developments, CEO for Business Leadership South Africa, Busi Mavuso, joins us now for a business perspective on economic reforms and a preview of the budget amid ongoing tensions with the U.S. Thank you so much for your time, Busi. Now, it's quite interesting because seeing this, the tensions and the communication between South Africa and the U.S., you look at it and it's all on a diplomatic level. And I actually did ask someone last week if we could see filtering through to trade relations, and they said, you know what, these are actually quite linked. So just talk to me, about, the business perspective. Is this a perfect storm of tensions that could lead to the breakdown of the trade relationship between the U.S. and South Africa?
Evening. We really hope it would not, because it would have serious devastating impact for the economy. There are engagements that are happening at the moment, amongst ourselves as business, amongst business and government, amongst government on their own. There is the engagement with the ambassador of South Africa in Washington. We are all trying to find a way in which we engage with the kitchen sink that the U.S. president has actually thrown at us. I'm worried about, obviously, the impact of the withdrawal of aid, by the U.S. government. I'm sure National Treasury is at their wits' end as they plan to deliver the budget next week in terms of how are they going to factor, this loss of funding, because this is important funding that is meant to deal with, the healthcare issues that we actually have in this country. Yeah. We have not had to cater for this in our budget for many years. Now, all of a sudden, at the drop of the hat, without much notice, this thing has been pulled under our feet. So we find ourselves in a very difficult position, and we're really hoping that we can actually find a resolution to dealing with this issue, because it's going to have a significant impact on our economy.
And I mean, it's not even just on the health front. I think it's really come to the fore that South Africa must be able to stand on its own and on its own finances as well. Just in terms of how the budget is approached from here on out to protect the country, what would you be looking for in terms of our finances being protected, where we are not vulnerable to things that are happening on the global stage, particularly with the global tensions escalating?
Yeah, look, I don't think that National Treasury can plan for what we don't know. We can't make plans for things that may or may not come. So I really think that we already have a plan in place, as a country. When you listened to the State of the Nation address, the president really presented a good State of the Nation address, which really spoke about a consolidation exercise. He was really touching on the fact that we've already laid a lot of groundwork. There is a lot that we've done as a country from an energy perspective, from a transport and logistics perspective, from a water perspective, from the restoration of the criminal justice perspective, and from the municipalities perspective. We therefore need to continue on that momentum. So I think all we can do as a country is continue fixing our country, it's continue fixing our economy. And the structural reform agenda that we've actually put in place seeks to do exactly that. Because remember, the true north, and the plan with the reform agenda that we're putting in place is so that South Africa can once again be an attractive investment destination. It is so that we can get foreign direct investment, from all corners of the international, and global economy. It is so that we can reposition ourselves as the gateway to the African continent and as a gateway to the developing economies and emerging economy strata. And I think that is the work that will actually ensure that South Africa foolproofs itself, as it were, from whatever storms, not just the U.S., because remember, during COVID, we faced this precise storm, to say that there's not enough that we've done as a country to ensure that we are sustainable, to ensure that our supply chain systems, for instance, are resistant. So the acceleration of the African continental free trade and whatever else that we've been talking about is really going to have to be escalated. So I don't think it's a function of changing our plans, but it's a function of escalating and maybe, just continuing on this momentum and accelerating it so that then South Africa doesn't find itself in this vulnerable position whenever, some of these governments internationally decides to actually change their minds on how they are relating with South Africa.
And I mean, just when I was going through the State of the Nation address at Busi, it would seem that this particular one was different in the fact that there was a lot more focus on fixing local government and the municipalities that for a long time have just been left to deteriorate more and more. And I'm just thinking, with the plans laid out, does it seem like, because I mean, they are in a lot of them in a state of disarray and chaos, do these plans seem like they can actually reach far enough to actually start fixing the state of local government and the municipalities?
They definitely do. I really think what the president spoke about is what we wanted to hear as business. He spent a lot of time, and a lot of emphasis on the importance of getting municipalities up to standard. And that was important because, as you say, the dismal financial state of many municipalities is now a serious risk to the economy. Their debt issue has been left for far too long, and it has now become a significant albatross. Yeah. So the work underway of ring-fencing electricity and water revenue, as well as the new paper that they are actually developing on local government and structuring, it will really address the funding model for municipalities. So that is important. And I really think that the problem with how we are designed as a country is that national government, provincial government, and local governments are actually their own independent states, as it were. So even when things are deteriorating and they're actually going belly up in local government, national government can intervene. So the reforms that they're going to be putting in place are those that are going to ensure that if national government sees something going wrong, in the local government, then they can actually quickly intervene. Because at the moment, they are not in a position to do that. I liked what the president said as well in terms of giving the PSC more powers to ensure that the people that get hired at local government are the right people with the right skills to can actually undertake that work. Because as I'm saying, they are low unto themselves. They hire people who don't know what they are doing, people who don't have credentials, people who don't have the experience, and we are now left to suffer and pick up the pieces as a country. So the interventions are going to take some time, but in the meantime, there is work that is being done between business and government in the form of local government and municipalities, where we are doing what we're doing at national government to try and deploy resources on the ground, especially from a water infrastructure perspective, to ensure that we can send our own engineers who can retrofit some of these pipes, who can actually do the necessary maintenance, who can actually deal with the leaks and all of that, and that is just a means to an end to allow, this long-term or rather medium-term work, of reforms to come into effect and put in place the necessary changes that we actually need to see as a country.
Well, Busi, we do look forward to the details of the budget and really the amount of room that is going to be made for the plans that have been laid out at the State of the Nation address. Thank you so much for your time. That was Busi Mavuso, CEO for Business Leadership South Africa.